Thompson, and our Community Development Coordinator, Jeremy Least. They're going to talk about this program. I'd also be remiss, Shannon Meadows, the Community Development Director, has been intimately involved in this program development as well. So with that, Steve?
All right, thank you, Brian, and good evening, commissioners. So tonight we come to you with an exciting program. We went over it with the commission at retreat last April. I think I'd be remiss in saying I didn't think we'd be here at this point, but we've been able to move very quickly on a very important program, commonly known as a receivership program, but we're actually going to call it our nuisance property remediation program. So especially Jeremy and a lot of people on our staff have put a lot of work in last almost year at this point. It hasn't just been our department, though. It's been a lot of coordination with our law department, a lot of help from Jill, and also coordination with the county, especially the treasurer's office and also the judiciary. So a lot of hard work has gone into this to get us to this point. And so we're very excited to start this journey. So with that, I'll let Jeremy start talking about the program.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak tonight. So when we first started the vacant property registration, we met with the Housing Consortium. And one thing that came out of that meeting is what we discussed is compassionate code enforcement. So how compassionate code enforcement works is when we cite an owner with exterior orders, we want to be able to create a dialogue, conversations with that owner, and give time to get the repairs done, find resources if they need any resources. So the example we have here, this house was on Bellevue. This took around 7 months to get completed. There was no fines issued to the owner. We worked with the owner throughout this whole process, got this house repaired and back on the market. Just between 2019 to today, 32% of our exterior violations have been repaired by owners. So that is a very good step. We are starting to get community engagement, community buy-in, and repairing these vacant structures.
If I could just add one note to that. Prior to 2019, we were seeing a rate of around 10% compliance by owners when we cite them for exterior violations. So that's almost 3 times as many property owners taking responsibility for their properties.
So the vacant property registration, these are statistics that are up to date for today. So we have a total of 836 total vacant property. If you remember when we started this program in 2020, we identified 1,400 vacant property. So in 2 years, we have cut the number down to 836. So out of the 836, 362 of these properties are fully registered. 47 are foreclosed registrations, and 427 properties still remain unregistered. So that we're about a 49% registration rate. The national average is around 30. So we're doing very well in that area. For our total vacant properties, 67% actually reside within Clark County, and then 33% are outside of Clark County. So not only are we battling our owners who could be out of state, out of country, a big part of the battle is right here inside of our own city and county. So these are our 2021 nuisance abatement numbers. Now these are numbers for total for this city. So for weeds, we spent $91,504. Board and Secures, $34,000. Junk and trash, $125,000. So just between those 3 categories, we're spending $251,787 just to abate nuisance throughout. For emergency demolitions, these are demolitions. If the fire department is on scene and the structure is unsafe like they had the other night, we actually have to do an emergency demolition. So we spent $116,000 there, and demolition was $395,000. So our total for demolition is $511,000. So total nuisance abatement is over $750,000, what we're spending yearly to abate public nuisance.
And if I could just add, as you know, that junk and trash number, that's not a total number. There's still a lot of junk and trash out there. As soon as we clean a property up, those same properties get dumped on. So it's an ongoing problem. No matter how much we spend, there's always going to be more junk and trash that we need to abate. And there,
So in just this, we can see that demolition is 52% of our total nuisance abatement, and junk and trash is a pretty high number at 16%. So junk and trash, like a lot of very big problem.
so we're spending $750,000 every year cleaning up properties and tearing down houses. These are all issues that property owners have chosen not to take care of themselves. So it falls on the city especially to remediate those problems.
So when we talked in our retreat last year, we talked about one owner and amount of money that's owed to the city alone. So in 2021 with this owner, they had a total of 35 properties, 34 with delinquent taxes, and 24 of those properties were in the city of Springfield. In 2022, they are down to 27 properties, 26 with delinquent taxes, and 20 are in the city of Springfield. So this number has dropped. These owners have sold a couple, but they have been foreclosed on by our Clark County treasurer. So you can just see in outstanding code enforcement, they are almost at $50,000. Demolition, they're right under 100,000. But amount owed to the city total, we're over 200,000. So this is just one owner within the city that owes this much money.
If I could comment, the bulk of the tax, because these are real estate taxes for the larger part, that's owed to the school district. That's not owed to the city of Springfield. That's owed to the Springfield City School District. So this is taking money away from education while the children, because is this by and large not rental property?
Correct. All of these properties are rental properties except their primary residence.
So this particular landlord has revenue coming in, which she is collecting. Those children are going to, by and large, the Springfield City School. And yet she is not paying her fair share of taxes to support that education, and in fact owes money. So she is damaging us two ways as a community. One, the children are receiving the service at the cost of all of us other taxpayers, and she is not contributing her fair share. My understanding is from our meeting this afternoon is that our new county treasurer, Treasurer Littlejohn, is going after these folks. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Hallelujah. It's about time that these folks who are taking advantage of the situation here in the city and in the county, it's time we put an end to that. It's time for them to pay their fair share instead of bilking this community and making the big bucks in the process. And I couldn't help but notice that an earlier slide, contrary to what some believe, 2/3 of the people who own vacant property are residents of this county. Am I correct?
That is correct.
So that old adage that, well, we've got so many vacant homes and lots because everybody on either coast owns that property, that's just simply not true. 2/3 of the vacant property is owned by the good people of Clark County. I think that's important to note. This is right out taking money right away from the Springfield City School District, while in the same time sending the children in those rental units to school and expecting them to be educated.
We want to talk a little bit on how we got to tonight. So we started with compassionate code enforcement. From there, we built with engaged collaboration, the county, community partners. So then we went to our vacant property registration, and we knew with our vacant property registration, that was just one small tool in the giant toolbox what we needed. So we have moved to intergovernment cooperation. Again, the Clark County Treasurer's Office has been great. So now we want to talk about our nuisance property remediation program. So we'll do a quick overview of what exactly a receiver does. So in community development, we will identify a vacant property and issue nuisance abatement orders. So these would be exterior, we would start with exterior orders. So those would be 30-day orders that we would send to the owner. If the owner calls at any point in time, we are willing to work with them. Our goal is to stop the process before we get into court. So after due process and the 30 days has expired, if we have no contact from the owner, we would declare the property a public nuisance. After the property is declared a public nuisance, this property would be filed into the Court of Common Pleas by our law department. Once it's filed into court, the judge would order the owner into court, present a defense. Generally, the judge would give them a timeline, usually around 60 days, to bring the property up to code into compliance. After that timeline, if the property is not brought up to code, a receiver would be requested. So what a receiver would do is the receiver would abate the public nuisance. So when we do these exterior orders, it would only be on the exterior. We can't enter in any property without a right of entry. So the receivers would abate the public nuisance, so they would repair the exterior of the structure. Once the exterior of the structure is repaired, we go back to court with the owner. The owner would have to pay all abatement costs of all repairs. If that repairs are paid off, then the owner gets their property, kind of walk away. The case is closed at that point. If that is not paid at that point, the receiver gets what's called a receivership deed. So at that point, the receiver can actually sell the house. So all liens, all mortgages would be paid in certain order. How they're paid, back taxes would be paid. But on that, Treasurer Littlejohn has committed, because all the comps have to work for that. So if a house is going to have $100,000 worth of repairs, it can only be sold for $80,000. Those comps won't really work out. So what the Treasurer's Office has suggested is they are willing to drop the back tax to make some of the comps. So if we can pay the taxes with all the money left over, they will of course be paid. But if this gets the house back on the market, taxes will be there in the future. We would much rather see that. So once the property sells, we still have the interior. So what happens is when the investor buys the property, they of course have to repair the interior before a certificate of occupancy is issued. So the receivership holds the deed to the property until the property can gain a certificate of occupancy, and then the deed does transfer to the new owner. And then the property is back into production. So right now, we've identified out of our 420 unregistered properties, 160 of these are deceased owners, no probate court. And these are our biggest challenges because there is no way to move the property. So these are the properties that we'd like to start with first. Really start cleaning up. So
Would you mind going back to the previous slide, please? My understanding is that Judge Rich Carey in the probate court is the judge who's agreed to hear these cases. So I think we owe Judge Carey a big thanks because I think this is clearly going to be an incredible opportunity for the city. And I'm going to take this opportunity to commend Shannon and Steve and Jeremy and Jill for all the work that you've done on this. Essentially, what we're doing is taking vacant pieces of property, clearing the title so that people can purchase these properties or they go into the receivership and can be brought back to productive use on the tax rolls. I've had any number of people approach me and say, Dave, why aren't we saving some of those big old homes? And the simple answer was, we can't get title to them. And we talked about this afternoon. What has stood in the way of getting a clear title on on some of these properties?
One of the biggest issues is probate court. So if someone passes away, they don't have a will, and that is our big challenge, right? Investors can't buy them. So a lot of it is, of course, will, or people walk away, they have no interest, but some of these are forfeited to the state. That makes a challenge as well. So
this will allow those who, like 1159 South, an organization here in the community, and I know there are individuals also who want to try to rehab an older home. This program will allow us, in cooperation with the county treasurer and the probate court, to in fact bring those houses from the vacant property register back on the market with a clear title, so there's no problems down the line. This is just fantastic. Warren, we've often talked about the need to infill in the city, and particularly in the south end of the city. And I think this is one of the tools that is going to mean a lot. Have we got something on the agenda coming up?
Yes, Commissioners, we will have a resolution of support for this for the commission to consider tonight as an emergency resolution. I'll, at the end of the work session, I'll go over the 3 add-on items, but yes, that would be included.
Because that's the one that's 05122. I think Jill refers to this as the receivership. Yeah, I knew you preferred receivership as opposed to nuisance property remediation program, but it's the same thing.
Because receivership is just one piece of this, so I don't want anyone to think we're that limited. We want to bring people to the table to fix their property and to bring it up to code. So this is just our chance to get them to, hopefully the intention of the court should do that, and that's going to help with, so while receivership is one tool, it's one of many.
Outstanding. I just cannot thank you enough. I know we expected this to take a long time, and all of you have gotten this done in record time, and I think it's critical for the continuing development of our city. So thank you. Thank you all very, very much. This is great work. Thank you.
If I could just add one thing, this program we haven't seen outside the free season Ohio. And so these first few cases we're going to take in front of a judge are going to be properties we've already identified where the owners deceased. So the chance of having someone appear in court pretty low. Hopefully we'll be able to work out any bugs or kinks going through this process. So by the time we do get to properties with living owners, we aren't running into those types of roadblocks, and we have a smooth process so we can really start to see those properties.
However, if they do appear in court, I would suggest you let them keep their property.
Yes.
What could we possibly tell individuals who are homeowners or who are getting along in age? What could we do to support the community in preventing this, as far as educating individuals without wills or ensuring that they have those wills in place? Is there like a set of information that we could provide to individuals in the community for that?
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. And Shannon just said United Senior Services does provide some of those services. But you're right, getting more education out there so we don't see these properties fall into a state where there is no owner and we have to work through some of these issues. So that is another piece to this is education, also providing any resources that might be available to help keep properties maintained.
You guys talk about your collaborative or your compassionate code enforcement because, Ms. Phillips, I think that's the other part of the answer. So if you would explain that.
Major thing with compassionate code enforcement, if you receive orders, is just to call us. Our goal is to work with you. What I tell people a lot is this didn't happen overnight, and nor is it going to get fixed overnight. So, especially when we're talking about exterior orders, I know personally if I received exterior orders, I probably wouldn't be happy with myself. You have to really take that into account when we're issuing exterior orders to owners. We do have programs. I'll give you one quick story. We had a gentleman that needed to paint his house. He talked to me, he worked out a plan with me, and actually every paycheck bought a gallon of paint and kept working on his house. Took almost a year to get his house painted, but he did it. And what I like to tell everyone, the goal is resolution. One of those, if we can't stress enough, call. If you receive orders, just call us. Find a way to work through it. We have agencies in place. Habitat's putting on siding for someone West Southern Avenue. We have people that are here to help. So again, just call us, get orders.
Anything else?
Commissioners, I just want to say before we move on to the add-on sheet, I just want to commend our staff, specifically community development and their hard work. I know we talked about this back at retreat last year, and it's cool to see this come to fruition. The legal department has been intricately involved. Mark Ross, who came up and joined our, has moved on. Was instrumental in helping set up some meetings with Columbus and so forth so that we could learn more about it. But Jill and Jason and Sarah just picked up the ball and kept it going from the legal side as well so that we could advance this forward. And when they say it, is quick to where we are today, I think it is quick from retreat last year in April to hopefully taking the first property here through in early March is a big accomplishment. And I just want to commend our staff and specifically these three for their efforts in leading this forward. With that, we do have 3 add-ons tonight. The first 2 are reappointments and appointments. The first one is reappointing Tim Partial to the Board of Building Appeals. The next one is consenting to the appointment of Alec Carnes to the Board of Building Appeals. And then finally, the one we talked about earlier is a resolution of support for the enactment of a local nuisance property remediation program within the city of Springfield. I'll add, again, Ohio Revised Code gives communities like Springfield the authority to do this. So that's why this comes as a resolution of support from the commission for staff to advance this forward.
Any questions? Yeah. 50. There. Okay, the public hearing scheduled for 6:50 is called to order. Clerk will read the proposal.
Notice was published in the Springfield News and Sun, a newspaper of general circulation within the city, advertising the city commission's consideration of vacating the first alley west of Huron Avenue from Leffel Lane north to the first intersecting east-west alley, and the first alley north of Leffel Lane from Huron Avenue west to the first intersecting north-south alley. Attached here too is a true and correct copies of this notices of public hearing published on January 24th and 31st, 2022.
I move that the communication be ordered, received, recorded in the minutes, and filed.
Second.
Other questions, comments? Anyone in the audience want to speak to this matter?
Mayor Copeland, can
Yes,
can we do a roll call for that motion?
go ahead.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes?
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. Guess I was right. Okay. Anyone in the audience want to speak to this matter? Staff report.
Good evening, everyone. The applicant is requesting the vacated alley space for developing an office building for SMHA. Return reports from utilities state no objections. Return reports from staff state no objections. For utilities, Spectrum had a comment that they would prefer not to vacate this alleyway because there is equipment present in the alley. Staff recommended approval of the request, and the request was approved unanimously at the City Planning Board meeting. There were no objections from the public received. Thank you.
So are you saying that, I couldn't hear this, Spectrum, there was a issue, could you say that again, please?
So they have facilities in the alleyway, and they were suggesting not to vacate the alley space.
Okay. The one utility.
Were there any objections anywhere along the path?
No, there were not.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Commission? Audience want to speak to this matter? Move on to the next.
We should adjourn,
I
Mayor.
I move we adjourn the hearing.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Ms. Phillips, Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes?
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. Move on to the second one. Staff report.
The applicant is seeking approval to amend the shopping center district plan to construct a new hotel. The parcel is surrounded by city residential zoning to the north and the west, township residential to the east, and city commercial in the south. The proposed hotel will have 98 rooms and has a different parking configuration. The previous amendment to this section or parcel of North Bechtel Avenue was in 2015 and had a different site layout. As seen from the site, the one in the blue is the previous plan, and the one in the orange is the proposed amendment to this CC2A plan. The Connect Clark County Comprehensive Plan shows this future character area as commercial center. Return reports from staff state no objection and recommend approval. City staff received no objection from the public, and the request was approved unanimously at City Planning Board meeting. The staff recommend approval of request to amend the CC2A plan. Thank you.
So point of order, if we could go back and make the motion, to move into the motion and vote on the motion.
We need to
I'll
hear
read,
from Jill.
let me read the communication. Notice of a public hearing for the purpose of considering a proposed amendment to the CC2A development plan located at the corner of St. Paris Pike and St. Paris Connector was published in the Springfield News Sun, a newspaper of general circulation within the city. Attached hereto is a true and correct copy of the legal notice published on January 6, 2020.
I move that the communication be ordered received, recorded in the minutes, and filed.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Phillips, Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop.
Yes?
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Thank you, Patterson.
So is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak to this matter? Go to the microphone, please.
Please give your name and address for the record.
Laura Helbling with Viox and Viox Civil Engineers, 602 Lila Avenue, Milford, Ohio, 45150. I'm the civil engineer of record for this project. Just wanted to say that we're really excited. Hotels are kind of back post the major hold-on hotels. We've been working on this one for a while and looking forward to it. Life.
Any questions of,
You know, when you look to the one to the left that it's been in place, it kind of defines what's going to be there. You look to the one on the right, it shows I guess, 3 parcels, there gonna be 3 tenants? Okay.
So,
3 tenants?
Yeah.
And Steve, is there gonna be an overlay on this or something that they have to resubmit and be approved?
They would be required, so when those outlots would be developed
Mhm.
or move forward with development, they would have to come back and amend the plan to show what's going to be there because they just show them as
Okay.
currently developable.
So we're just
developable
changing the
parcels.
zoning.
Changing the configuration
Right.
of the
Mm-hmm.
4 to 3, which reconfigures the hotel lot and the layout of the development itself.
But we're not changing the use. This is already.
No, the
Yeah.
hotel was already something that was
that's
shown
right.
and approved. It just
Okay.
reconfigures those
That's because
outlots.
they had to come back and present a plan. And
Yes.
they're gonna do that now. Okay,
Yes.
next time. Okay, got it.
Were there any objections from anyone along the way?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone in the audience want to speak to this matter? Thank you.
I move the hearing be adjourned.
Second?
Move seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips, Dr. Estrom,
Yes?
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. Sure. We're going to take a moment of, between this and the next.
Brian Lee. I figured. Yes.
I even said it.
No fooling there.
Okay, the city commission meeting is called to order. Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrom,
Here.
Mr. O'Neill,
Here.
Ms. Phillip,
Here.
Mr. Rue,
Here.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes, please ride for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. As you may not know, my right foot isn't working right now, so getting up is not easy. Our God, we're grateful for the opportunity to meet and make decisions that are important to this community. Please help us to make those decisions well and to stay with them through good or bad situations, and help us be helping this community get stronger every day. In your name we pray, amen.
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 Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Behind you.
Got it. Clerk, proceed with first readings.
We have a motion for the minutes, please.
I move approval of the minutes as presented.
Second.
You really want to follow this record here, huh? Sorry about that. It's been moved and second to approve the minutes. Any questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillip, Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrom,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Okay, now we'll do first readings by title only.
Vacating the first alley west of Huron Avenue from Leffel Lane north to the first intersecting east-west alley, and the first alley north of Leffel Lane from Huron Avenue west to the first intersecting north-south alley. Approving an amendment to the existing CC2A District Development Plan for 4.93 acres at the corner of St. Paris Pike and St. Paris Connector to modify the planned building layout and parking configuration. Authorizing the issuance of a purchase order for diversity, equity, and inclusion training from Clark State College for an amount not to exceed $60,000. Authorizing the purchase of two 2023 HV 507 SFA trucks for an amount not to exceed $165,675.90 from Rush Truck Centers through the Ohio Department of Transportation Cooperative Purchasing Program in accordance with the provisions of Section 5513.01B of the Ohio Revised Code. Authorizing the city manager to enter into task order 2 with HDR Incorporated for professional services in an amount not to exceed $6,950,000. I believe that's right. Number doesn't look right on my agenda here. For a total contract amount not to exceed $56,900.
That would be 669.
Yeah,
right?
somewhere the comma is not quite right.
She added them.
Maybe it's $6,950? Okay, sorry about that.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Confirming and approving change order number 13 to the contract between the city and Moody's of Dayton Incorporated for the well pump cleaning and rehabilitation project to increase the contract in an amount not to exceed $113,700 for a total amount not to exceed $1,463,068, and authorizing the city manager to execute said change order number 13. Confirming and approving amendment number 1 to the Box 27 Services Agreement with Box 27 Volunteer Fire Department Incorporated to allow Springfield Fire Rescue Division members to drive Box 27 trucks if needed.
Are there any questions or comments from commissioners?
Yes. In terms of item 039-22, are the trucks we purchasing made at Navistar?
Commissioner, yes, they are, and I'll ask Chris Moore to go into a little bit more detail as far as the trucks we're purchasing.
Both of these vehicles are Navistar trucks. This purchase is for the cab and chassis, and then in the coming weeks, it will come before you to have them turned into snowplows.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Anything else on first readings from anybody? Clerk will proceed with second.
vacating the first alley south of East High Street from South Limestone Street west to Primrose Alley.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
vacating the second alley west of Tibbetts Avenue from East Liberty Street north to the first intersecting east-west alley.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
vacating the first alley west of Erie Avenue from Auburn Avenue north to the first intersecting east-west alley.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
providing for the issuance and sale of notes in the maximum aggregate principal amount of $7,025,000 in an anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying the cost of improving the A municipal water system facilities, including replacing water lines and improving the water treatment plant by installing a substation air brake and constructing a liquid barrack building, together with all necessary appurtenances thereto, and B, municipal sewer system facilities, including but not limited to constructing and installing sanitary and storm sewer lines, rehabilitating the city's wastewater treatment plant by replacing a primary effluent pump and substation, post-aeration gates and sludge pumps, installing combined sewer overflow mitigation and infiltration elimination projects, and purchasing real estate and related interests therein, together with all necessary appurtenances thereto.
Adopt.
Second.
I think it's really amazing you can read that whole thing.
I just don't know what I'm saying.
Anyone to speak, anybody want to speak to it? Clerk, call the roll.
Ms. Phillips, Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the purchase of 2022 Ford Police Interceptors from National Auto Fleet Group for an amount not to exceed $286,455.54 through Sourcewell pursuant to the Sourcewell Contract Purchasing Cooperative Program in accordance with the provisions of Section 9.48 of the Ohio Revised Code.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions, comments from the commission?
I just think it's a shame we don't have a local Ford dealership with whom we can do business.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a grant contract with the State of Ohio Department of Transportation to accept funds in the amount of $25,580 from the Ohio Elderly and Disabled Transit Fare Assistance Program, and authorizing the city manager and director of finance to perform all acts and execute all documents considered necessary to fulfill the city's obligations under said contract, to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements, and to provide assurances and additional information as required by the Ohio Department of Transportation.
So moved.
To adopt. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From anybody in the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the city manager to apply for and accept a 2022 Energized Community Grant through the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, NOPEC, in an amount up to $61,782 to be used for implementation of energy savings or energy infrastructure measures, authorizing the city manager to execute a grant agreement for the acceptance of said grant, and authorizing the city manager, law director, and director of finance to do all things necessary for the submission of the application and acceptance of the grant, and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
This is part of our aggregate energy program. Do I recall correctly?
Yes, that is correct. So we do receive on an annual basis the Energized Community Grant, which allows us to invest in our public facilities for energy-related upgrades, as well as a community event sponsorship, but which is usually in about the $2,000 range, and we've been able to use for towards holiday in the city.
And individual consumers receive a discount as a result of our enrollment with NOPEC. Is that
Yeah, a
correct?
fixed rate term. So.
Very good. Thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estra,
Yes?
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Cope.
Yes.
Authorizing the exercise of the city's option to renew the parking management agreement with Reef Parking, formerly known as Republic Parking System LLC, for downtown parking management services for an amount not to exceed $112,568.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes?
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Gillum Lawn Care and Landscaping LLC for the mowing of boulevards for a period of 3 years with an option to renew for 2 additional 1-year periods for an amount not to exceed $163,814.
So
Move to
moved.
adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes?
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Dayton Sweeping Service, doing business as DSS Sweeping Service for street sweeping, cleaning services for a period of 3 years with an option to renew for 2 additional 1-year periods for an amount not to exceed $638,675.
Move to adopt.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes?
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Confirming purchases and the obtaining of services for the city and providing for payment therefore and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes?
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Providing for supplemental appropriations within various funds and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes?
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the purchase of a 1,000-gallon AF-gas refueler, complete and delivered from Skymark Refuelers LLC for an amount not to exceed $129,262 through the U.S. General Services Administration Purchasing Cooperative in accordance with the provisions of Section 9.48 of the Ohio Revised Code and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? Mr. Estrada?
Yes. Is this for use at the airport, this and the next item both,
I'll have Tom just talk a little bit specifically why we're
Okay.
purchasing these
Thank
two
you.
items.
Yes, Commissioner, that item and the next are 2 fuel trucks. One is for general aviation aircraft and the other one is for jet aircraft. The airport manager, the finance department, and myself have been reviewing the FBO operations out at the airport for about 7 months, really looking at, we've had a tremendous change of mix of customers out there that we've been talking about over the last few years. General aviation customers have certainly increased, as well as commercial traffic. And then we have this mix of electric, vertical takeoff and landing, Air Force customer mix out there. And so the city was looking at how can we better provide service. And so the way to do that, we think, is to take over the FBO operation. So the city staff will be running that from here on out, and then really better equipped to handle the needs of the changing diverse customers we have.
the airport is just increasingly important as an economic development asset for our city, and I'm pleased to say we're see that we're taking steps to improve services available to clients at the airport.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Tom, how many staff members will we be
There'll
adding?
be 3.
3?
Yes. There's currently 3 there now, running the FBO. But this will give us greater flexibility. We've had large meetings out there, large groups come out with the Air Force. Where we're in the terminal building, there's lots of kind of overlap of those services going on now. So when we analyze it, it's going to be a break-even kind of scenario, but we'll have greater control of the quality of service we're providing. That really was the focus of where we're going.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
I'm have to confess that, like some other people, I was doubtful we'd ever get down this road as far as we've gotten. And Tom was willing to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And on behalf of people of Springfield, thank you, Tom. Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes?
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the purchase of a 5,000-gallon jet refueler, complete and delivered from Skymark Refuelers LLC for an amount not to exceed $262,857 through the U.S. General Services Administration Purchasing Cooperative in accordance with the provisions of Section 9.48 of the Ohio Revised Code and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes?
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to apply for, accept, and enter into a cooperative agreement to finance the 2022 water line replacement project with the Ohio Water Development Authority and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes?
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a preliminary agreement with Marker Incorporated for the preliminary services, design development services for the design build construction of the National Advanced Air Mobility Center of Excellence to be located at the Springfield Beckley Municipal Airport for an amount not to exceed $171,800 and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
I was
Mr. Estrop?
wondering if Tom would comment on this item, because this is an incredibly exciting opportunity for the city.
Absolutely, I'm happy to. So this is related to the National Advanced Air Mobility Center of Excellence project we spoke about in previous meetings, but this is the initial award of construction to Marker Construction to start on the preliminary design services package, which we'll work with them that will ultimately culminate then in a guaranteed maximum price number. But the total project is estimated at $8.2 million for it, and the timing is pretty tight in what our commitments are with the Department of Defense through that program. That's the reason we're asking for the emergency approval here tonight. But we're excited about the project. This will handle some of those customers that we were just talking about and give us an opportunity to handle their needs as they're coming out to do the research and development and testing, as well as open up space for collaboration, something that you're helping us work on here locally with several entities here in town. I'll let you speak to that if you want. But so it's very exciting to be able to get to this stage, and now we're just trying to get it finished.
Didn't we get considerable amount of grant money
We
towards
did.
that 1.2? And do I recall
That's-
correctly, it was one of 4 awards nationally?
It's an $8.2 million project. We received $6 million from the Department of Defense through one of their programs, and then $2 million from Jobs Ohio. So the bulk of the cost of this project is covered by the federal government and the state government, or Jobs Ohio. And then the city's going to handle the rest, the $200,000.
Well, congratulations, and I commend you on great grant writing. That's pretty significant to draw down that DOD, the Department of Defense grant. 4 across the entire nation, and Springfield, Ohio gets 1. That's good work.
There were, I'm sorry about that, there were 13 that were
13?
selected across the country. So it was very competitive, as you're saying. And we certainly had a lot of assistance too. I meant to say that the the Dayton Development Coalition and Wright-Patterson Air Force Base both supported this effort, and that's really why it was the military value that really spoke through the letter that was written by Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the Air Force Research Lab, that really kind of made the case for the investment. Yep.
Anyone else? Clerk, call the roll.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Amending ordinance number 9190, passed March 12, 1991, and commonly known as the codified ordinances of the city of Springfield, Ohio, by repealing and replacing chapter 189 titled Promotional Examinations for Police and Fire Divisions and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt?
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
I was just wondering if you can explain a little bit of the changes within this.
Yeah, specifically, this relates to the fire division. Previously, our lieutenant and captain promotional process required only a book test. This will keep the book test in place, but then we'll add an assessment center component like we see at the battalion chief and assistant chief level to these positions. And so this sets the framework for that so that we can advance this forward. I'll say this is an item that came before us as staff from the strategic planning process done at the fire division and one of their subcommittee work groups. And we also took this before the Civil Service Commission, and they're supportive of that change as well.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a grant agreement for a water and wastewater infrastructure program grant through the Ohio Department of Development in an amount up to $360,000. Authorizing a local matching expenditure in an amount not to exceed $90,000. Authorizing the city manager, director of finance, and law director to perform all acts and execute all documents considered necessary to fulfill the city's obligations under said grant agreement and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt?
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a development incentive agreement, single-family residential development with Lisa M. Ward and John Anthony Reagan to provide for sewer services to real property outside the city limits and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estra?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to submit the 2020 action plan of the city of Springfield, Ohio to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, authorizing the city manager, law director, and finance director to do all things they deem necessary to implement, operate, and administer the city's community development block grant program, emergency solutions grant program, and home program for the 2022 fiscal year, April 1, 2022 to March 31, 2023, and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
I was
Yes.
wondering if we might ask Shannon to provide us with a little additional information.
Yes, certainly, commissioners.
Thank you, Commission. This is our annual submission of what we call our entitlement allocation plan. Easier said, our CDBG budget, our home budget, and our emergency solutions grant budget. This plan is developed beginning in the fall of the previous year, and it is not much different than that which staff presented to you during budget hearings in November. The plan requires that there be a significant component of public participation. And I will say, I believe that this year is the most engaged and expansive public participation that the city has facilitated in a very long time. I need to give some really big credit to two very new staff members, Mr. Aaron Clark and Ross Cunningham, for really leading our neighborhoods and our community through a process of understanding what federal funds can and can't do here in the city of Springfield. So I will tell you, within this budget, it is based on the same allocation as was received last year, but we still do not know what the allocation actually will be. Not until Congress actually passes the fiscal year 2022 budget will the entitlement allocation process begin. So we could still be months away, but at this point, we do have percentage placeholders in the plan that allows us to address housing, continued engaged neighborhood planning, a lot of the compassionate code enforcement work and engagement work that we talked about earlier today, as well as some public infrastructure improvements and public facility improvement, both of which it's staff's recommendation. We'll see when we get the allocation that those be applied to implementing tasks within the engaged neighborhood plan. So that would be roads in the engaged neighborhood, as well as perhaps something like a park facility in the engaged neighborhood. And then also some overall demolition costs that we will have, and I'm forgetting one. Oh, public services. That would be our partnerships with other agencies and organizations that provide direct services to citizens.
Thank you very much
Yep.
for the additional information, and my congratulations to you and your team for doing such a great job, particularly given the COVID situation. To expand community involvement this year is no easy task, so kudos, well done.
Thank you. Thank you. The trick is not to try to do it in one meeting.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Phillips? Yes. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes,
Mr. Cope?
Yes.
Authorizing the purchase of the Milo Range Pro Training Simulator Suite with optional training items from the FAAC Incorporated for an amount not to exceed $48,500 through the U.S. General Services Administration Purchasing Cooperative in accordance with the provisions of Section 9.48 of the Ohio Revised Code, authorizing the issuance of a purchase order for the purchase of optional training items, specifically 2 X2 taser laser weapons with 2 cartridges, gunshot box, and Milo Range ceiling mount kit for the Milo Range Pro Training Simulator from FAAC Incorporated in amount not to exceed $9,680 and declaring an emergency therein.
so move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
Yes,
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
The next 3 items were added to the agenda, consenting to the appointment of Alec Carnes to the Board of Building Appeals and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Been moved and seconded. Questions, comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
yes,
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Point
Sorry, I
of
got
order.
these out of order.
Okay, thank you.
Consenting to the reappointment of Timothy Parshall to the Board of Building Appeals and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
second,
Been moved and seconded. Questions, comments from the commission? Audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrom?
yes,
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
And supporting the enactment of a local nuisance property remediation program in the city of Springfield, Ohio, and declaring an emergency therein.
so move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? Dr. Estrom?
I would like to read the last part of this resolution so people who may be watching at home understand what we're passing. And again, I want to commend the staff, Community Development Department, the Law Department for preparing this. What we're considering at this point is the following resolution. Be it resolved by the City Commission of the City of Springfield, Ohio, at least 4 of its members concurring. Take 4 of us to approve this. Section 1, that the City Commission supports the enactment of the City of Springfield's nuisance property remediation program in cooperation with the local judicial branch of government in Springfield and Clark County. Section 2, that the city manager, law director, and community development director are directed to prioritize this issue and work with our community partners and the Court of Common Pleas to implement and carry forward the nuisance property remediation program to further protect the public health, safety, welfare, and neighborhood preservation of the community of Springfield. Section 3, that this commission will provide support and leadership in effective collaboration, coordination, planning, and policy efforts to ensure the success of the nuisance property remediation program and to enhance the improvement of neighborhood, to increase home ownership, and to protect property values throughout the city of Springfield. And last but not least, Section 4, that by reason of the emergency set forth and defined in the preamble hereto, this resolution shall take effect and be enforced immediately. And my understanding is that we have a house teed up to maybe go forward as early as March.
Yeah, Commissioner, so we're working, assuming the commission provides that resolution of support tonight, we plan to meet with the community partners that will be engaged and involved in this process and really lay out the framework of that first case, which again, we'll intend to file sometime in March to get the process started. I think Jeremy mentioned, we're going to start with some low-hanging fruit, or maybe Steve said it, but start with some low-hanging fruit and make sure that we work any kinks out of the process, because this is new to the community. It's new to not just us, but to the court system and to the treasurer's office, the auditor's office. And so we're going to work through this together as a community, as a collaboration, and again, add this tool to our toolbox for the success of revitalizing our neighborhoods.
I want to add that the Housing Consortium met this afternoon, received a presentation from the staff, and the Housing Consortium unanimously adopted a position in support of this resolution. They're very pleased with seeing this come before the commission. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. That concludes our agenda. Are there other items that come before us from commissioners? Anybody in the audience want to speak to it? How about you back there? My wife doesn't come to the meeting very often, so I figure I got to embarrass her a little bit. No one? Is there a
Good.
motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
It's moved and seconded. Question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes, meeting's adjourned.